So we're entering into that time of year that we call the holidays. And the holidays, we're being bombarded in every moment by television, by our friends, and by all of the external things that we've been brought up with about what does it mean to be in the holidays. And most of it we've unconsciously accepted. So I want to go back and I want to walk you through some things in life. Do you remember when you were a child and you had a few bucks in your pocket, just a couple dollars in your pocket, and you had to buy a Christmas present? I do. I remember, I'm going to really date myself. There was a dime store called Kresge's. Okay, remember that? And Kresge's, where I lived in Dearborn, Michigan, was about a 1.5-mile walk. Now, when I was growing up, parents didn't drive you places. You walked to places. And your parents didn't want you going far away because they didn't want you going far away. But I remember one day telling my mother that I was going over my friend's house around the block. And I would be gone for 2 hours, and I will be back at such and such a time. And I ran all the way that 1.5 miles to Kresge's. And I had $2. And I went to the costume jewelry stand. And I bought as much as I could because as a young boy, I had no clue that quality jewelry was different than quantity jewelry. You know, most men don't get that. Oh, trinkets, let's put them on. You know, it's like decorating a Christmas tree. It doesn't have to be anything, just a trinket on there. So I bought all this jewelry, and I took it home, and it came in little boxes, you know, like this. So I had like 8 or 9 of them, and I wrapped them all up, put little bows on them. And I was there Christmas morning. And I was so overjoyed, and my mother looked, and she says, "What's this?" I said, "Open them, Mom." And my mom was a different person. And she opened them, and she looked at them, and she says, "Why did you spend your money on this junk?" Because you had to understand, that hurt me as a child. At that time, I was so hurt because I had put my whole heart and soul into what I had done and what I was giving, and then it was rejected. Now, I had the opportunity to talk to my mother about that before she died. And the thing that happened was she expressed to me, she says, "Lee, when you did that, we were struggling every week to scrape up enough money to just pay the mortgage. And when you spent the $2 on something which I would never value because I've never done jewelry, I could only think of the struggles." So you see, it wasn't that she rejected my gift. She was wrapped up in her own world. I'm going to come back to that. Do you remember in school when you got your grades? And you said, if I get an A in this class or something special in this class, and you got it, and you got that grade, and it meant something so much, and you came home and you had 4 A's and 1 C. Okay, 4 A's and 1 C. And you came home, and your father looked at your card, and he said, "Why is there a C there?" There was never recognition of the A's. There was only a C. As I talked to my dad later, my dad said to me, "It's because I knew you were better and I wanted to encourage you to do that." I didn't take it that way. So let's go on and continue this progression so we get a girlfriend or a boyfriend if you're a girl or whatever, if you're that or whatever. You know, it doesn't matter. Whoever you have, whatever you have. And you do things and you expect them to respond based on the feelings you're putting into an event. And they don't. And what happens? You're hurt. And if you're the person who has not given what has been asked for, what happens then? It's time for us to have a serious talk. Or we need to break up. Or something's not right. Or you don't love me. Or something of that nature. It goes on and on and on, right? And so then we go into the corporate world. We get our corporate job, and we're busting because we've got the American dream. We want to grow. We want to become more. We want to move up the corporate ladder, right? And so we go and we do our very best, and you get your performance evaluation, and you get a meets expectation. Well, I wasn't meeting expectation. I was far exceeding it based on my principle. But the person evaluating me said this: here is a list of everything that's on your thing, on your accountabilities, on your job description, everything that's on it. Where do you exceed completing all of those responsibilities? Have you met every single one of them? Well, in this case, I exceeded. In this case, I exceeded. In this case, I haven't been trained yet. In this case, I haven't been trained yet. And if you average it all out, what did I do? I had met expectations. But you see, in my mind, I'd exceeded because the ones that were important to me had exceeded. So what happened there? Disappointment, right? So then you get into marriage, and you're taught that if I meet the right person, I get into the right relationship, she'll do anything I want. She doesn't have a mind of her own because she's a woman. She has been brought up to serve and to wait on me and care for me because in a prior life I was a sultan. And so God, in its infinite wisdom, combined all of the women in that one marriage into one woman, and so she had to do all of that. I want you to know it was very quick I was disappointed. And then I got into the corporate world, and the more I went up the corporate ladder, and the more money I made, and the more accomplishments I had, and I would be so invested in that. And then it was this week, and this is where my talk came from. It was this week that I thought back on all of the things in the corporate world I worried about. In particular, the last 10 years when I was an officer of the company. All the things I stressed about. So I've been out of the corporate world a little over 10 years now. Not one of those things matters. Not a single one of those things matters, nor has it affected me in any way as I am today. But who I've become matters. And what I become and what I'm becoming is someone, as you, that understands that I have a creative power within me, that I am the source of it. And you see, all of this idea that our joy comes from people, places, things, events, it's a lie. It's a lie in capital letters. If we believe that we're going to get our joy, our peace, our love, our abundance from outside of ourselves, we are going to be constantly setting ourselves up for disappointment. But when we can go within and know that who we are and what we're being is the gift. So we come to this adage, and you hear this all the time, it is better to give than receive. Have you heard that? Okay? Now I'm going to play with that a little bit because it's true and it's not true. Okay? When we give, let's go back to my mother. When I was giving her the jewelry, every thought I had in my mind was to give to my mother. Every thought, I took my $2, the only money I had at that age, and I bought something, and I bought what I thought was the best. And I gave it with no desire for anything to be returned. I gave it. In that time that I was immersed, from the time I came up with the idea to the time it was received, I was in absolute bliss. I was being as much love and as authentic as I could be in a human. Right there, that was enough. The key thing is, at that point when the transfer occurs, it is up to that individual to accept, reject. It has no bearing on you. Let me take that further. When we receive from someone else, we are allowing them to give their gift. It's not that we're receiving from them, that we're getting a gift. It's not that at all. We are giving someone the opportunity to give unconditionally. And that's the process of giving and receiving. It's not that I give you this gift and then you give me this gift. It's the idea that I can express by giving completely to you what I'm giving and allow you in whatever way you are to freely give. And it's not necessarily an equal and energetic exchange, but it's the idea that I'm in the flow of giving and I'm allowing you to give. Therefore, I'm in the flow of receiving. And now we have a circulation of energy. And with that circulation of energy, that's the circle of life. Do you feel that? So as we open ourselves up to this idea of Christmas, this idea of the holidays, this idea of giving, here's the greatest gift you can give yourself. It's the gift of being you. It's the gift of expressing you. It's the gift of giving what you desire or not giving what you don't desire. You see, you do not have to give gifts at Christmas. I talked to my sons, Stephen and Matthew. And Stephen and Matthew, they're brothers, and they love each other. But why should they give gifts? Just out of tradition. Talk to each other. Decide, is this what you want, or is it the quality time that you spend together? Is it the time you're bonding together? You see, the gifts, we have gone and from connecting spiritually, connecting intimately, to the idea of external material things that once they're unwrapped, you ever been in a Christmas where all the gifts are unwrapped and they're off in a corner and you're over here? And everyone's left the gifts behind. The gifts were irrelevant. It was the process of the giving and receiving that we were immersed in. It's the process. I can remember so clearly all of the Christmases that we had as a family when my mother and father were alive and my sons were young. And we would all gather at my house or we would gather in Maui. And my mother and my father, Jean and I, Steve and Matthew, my brother and whichever wife it was at the time would be there, and my sister would be there. And we would be together and we would be exchanging. And it wasn't who got what. It was the fact that there was giving and receiving going on. And then after the giving and receiving of the gifts were pushed aside. And then what do? We sat down at the table, and as a group, we partake of food. And for us, it was Polish and Italian food. So I want you to know there is a great Polish deli on Central Expressway near Parker Road. And I went in it just yesterday. And they had all of this fresh kielbasa from Poletown in Chicago. They had guamkis and pierogis and kapusta and sharnina. This may not mean something to you, but this is where I was raised. And I looked at all of that stuff, and being a vegan, I realized I can't eat anything Polish. I can have the sauerkraut as long as we take out the sausage. But it wasn't the food. It was that we were in communion together. We were sharing food. We were laughing and joking. So isn't every meal that communion? Last night we went out to dinner. Jean, I, and Stephen, and we asked our neighbors across the street and their daughter to join us. And so the six of us went to this lovely, lovely restaurant in a little dive of a Thai restaurant in Denton, Thai Ocha. And I was told by my massage therapist, and massage therapists never lie. Do you know why they never lie? Because they've seen you naked. They don't have any reason to lie. They've seen you naked, okay? That made you laugh, Carol, didn't it? Anyway, I was told to go to this Thai restaurant, and the food was the best Thai food I've had. It was that good. But the key thing is that there we were, the six of us, and for 2 hours, we talked, we laughed, and we shared. We were in communion. We were centered in the moment of giving our opinions and allowing others to give their opinions back. And what were we in? We were in that giving and receiving time. It was no one monopolizing the conversation. And the family from across the street, they do think I'm weird, okay, because I'm a religious science minister. If you're from Texas and you're locally raised, you're weird if you look at me. So anyway, their daughter, in fact, last year asked if she could interview me because she had to do an essay on the most interesting person she's ever met. And she came up and said, well, Lee, you're the weirdest man I've ever met. Can I interview you? And yet last night, the joy of us being together and sharing was clearly evident. I want to share yesterday that also I had the honor to be asked to do an ordination. An ordination is where a minister has completed all of the requirements, they have their license, and then they have to go a minimum of 2 years doing all of this work. And then at the end, you have an oral panel. And I was on the oral panel for this wonderful woman. And we passed, and she was being ordained, and she and her husband had asked me to be the presiding minister. And it's a very different community than Agape. It's a very small community. It's in Fort Worth. It's a very much older community. But you felt such love. And so the energy that you gave in that was not the energy you're seeing here. Does that make sense? Because I'm giving energy that's matching the vibration of the people that are in this room. There it was more of a homely energy, more of a laid-back energy. So there was no formality in what I did. Everything was about bringing this woman into the light, showing her magnificence to her community, showing the consciousness that I saw in her, showing the truth, and letting them just embrace this woman. And it felt so good to give. You see, that's what makes us feel good, is when we are giving without the condition of receiving. But here's the thing, when you've been allowed to give so freely, you receive in yourself by the giving. You don't need to have it come anywhere else, because if you are the divine expression, if you are the one, the infinite, the power, the presence of the divine, and you are giving, then the divine that you are knows that you're giving, and within you, you're going to receive more. And when you receive it from within, you don't need anyone else to say, here's something else. You don't need anyone else. You can be that. But here's the key. We are meant to be together. We are meant to be in community. But we're meant to be in community coming from the strong, from the strength, from the magnificence that we are the one. And that's what we're all desiring to see. We're all desiring to see the best of each of us when we come together. And that's the space we're building at Agape, a place where each of us comes and uniquely expresses and experiences, and we get to be loved and supported by everyone in that uniqueness, and there is no judgment and there is no non-acceptance. You are accepted because you are. It's that simple. You're accepted because you are. The gift of Christmas for you is to accept yourself. The gift of Christmas for you is to give yourself. The gift of Christmas for you is to be yourself. If you do those 3 things, you will have the greatest Christmas of your life. Because within you, there will be a light that emanates from your heart into the world so big, so bright, so attractive, that you will attract all of that back and more. This I promise with everything I have. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.